We're in Jamestown, New York, home of the Jamestown Expos. And the Expos field is going to be the setting later tonight for one of the most unusual candid camera sequences we've ever tried.
Goodness, Mr. Diethrick, nice to see you. And you're with the Post-Journal now, and we're in big trouble, Danny, because your photographer took the wonderful black and white photos that night during the action, and was nice enough, or the paper was, to give me prints, but it says on the back very clearly, copyrighted, do not duplicate. And I published one of them in my book that came out last month.
Oh, that's fine.
It's a statute of limitations. But they're very good photos. Yeah. Wow. So this place hasn't changed a lot, has it? I mean, actually, the grass is better than the night I was here. But the press box area and all, wow. You know, we came back here the following day to shoot the intro, where I explained to the viewers what we were doing, and walked out to the mound. But we did it the following day, so that it worked out for our schedule. But we said in the intro that this will be happening tonight, so it's kind of a little bit twisted, but it was great to come here. And you guys, I mean, really, I said to Danny as we drove over here, I hope Greg found somebody to come to his gathering. I'm so touched that you all keep this sequence alive for us. If we had this sort of support for every sequence that my dad before me and I have done on Candid Camera, we'd spend every day of our lives running around paying tribute to the sequences, because there are thousands of them. But thanks to you guys, this one sort of lingers on, which is good, because I did write a book that came out last month. It's out now. It's sort of a memoir, except I don't like that. It's sort of a highfalutin word, memoir, you know. When you say memoir, it makes it seem like you have actually deep thoughts and something important to say, and I have neither, but I did write a memoir. It's called Self-Amused, which I think describes me, and the subtitle is A Tell-Some Memoir. Because, you know, you hear about tell-all books, but the last thing I'm going to do is tell all in a book. Why would you do that? I mean, everybody has to have their secrets, right? No, the real reason I made it tell some is because if it's successful, I can write a second book, and it, you know, I'll have stuff left over. But in the book, I do devote, what, Danny, 4 or 5 pages, something, to the Jamestown experience and the photo from the paper. And I cite it as one of my 2 favorite baseball sequences that I was ever involved with on Candid Camera. You know, Candid Camera started by my dad, Alan Funt, in 1947 as a radio show called Candid Microphone, and the following year on TV, 1948. And in answer to the question you were going to ask me later, we're planning to bring it back with new production, and we're in talks to do that right now, so fingers crossed, maybe we'll get back on really soon. But we did a lot of stuff about sports because my dad and I loved sports so much. And one of his tricks was, if he really, really wanted to meet a famous athlete, he would come up with a Candid Camera joke where that athlete could be a participant on our side, and he'd hire him for that, but really it was just so he could shake hands and meet him and spend some time. So, for example, his co-host for one show was Jackie Robinson, if you could believe that, in the studio. And when I was just a little kid, the stars in a sequence were Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra. And I went that day, spent the entire day at a golf course in New Jersey. I didn't have anything to do except stand and watch. And it was really lame because the joke that day was supposed to be they were playing the part of caddies, believe it or not. Mickey and Yogi in civilian clothes were caddies. And they were giving unwanted advice to golfers. And we thought that'd be so funny. And it wasn't funny at all, partly because Mickey was so shy he couldn't get a word out. And Yogi wouldn't stop talking, but you couldn't understand anything he said. So between the two of them, it was not very successful. But I got to be there all day. I mean, breakfast and lunch and all day with Mickey Mantle. It was just too much. So later in life, I did a bunch of baseball-related sequences. This, of course, was one of my two favorites. I'll tell you briefly, though, what the other was. It was done some years after Jamestown. Joe Torre at the time was manager of the Yankees, and he invited me to trick some of the Yankee players. Now, we don't really often target people. We did here that night, you know, the pitcher was really the only person we were trying to get. And in the case of the Yankees, at least we had a lot of players to deal with. But Joe Torre said, come up with an idea and I'll let you do it. So the idea I came up with was that I would play the part of a representative from the commissioner's office, and I would tell these players one at a time that the commissioner was very, very concerned about an awful trend in baseball, and it's really got to stop. Pause. And that is too much spitting on national TV. And also too much crotch rubbing. Those two things we've simply got to stop. Now I call in these players one at a time to this meeting room. It's right before a game against the Angels, and they're sitting there, and I'm telling Jorge Posada, that was the year we did this, so it must have been, what, Dan, around 2001, 2002?
Maybe a little later, yeah.
Yeah, various stars at that time. You know, we have records here, and I'm looking at a blank piece of paper. Would you know, Jorge, that you in the past 12 months have been seen spitting on national TV 876 times? I didn't mean to do it. So the thing was, the night before, I'm going to drop a lot of names on you here, but the night before we did it, I went to the Yankees-Angels game and sat up in the press box with my friend at the time, Bobby Mercer, the late Bobby Mercer of the Yankees, who died a short while later. And I told him what I was going to do. And he said, well, look, if you do anybody with these jokes, you've got to do, and who the heck was
Andy Pettit.
Oh, yeah, Andy Pettit. Thank you, Dan. Andy Pettit, the pitcher on the Yankees at the time. Because Mercer said Andy Pettit rubs his crotch more during a game than any player we've ever seen. And he knows it, we know it, you can really get him. So I get Andy Pettit in this conference room, and I'm telling him that the commissioner is concerned, and he's incredulous. It can't be, you have the wrong guy or whatever. And it wasn't too bad. And I did the reveal at the end, smile, you're on Candid Camera. And I go back to my office. And 2 days later, our editor comes running in and says, I've been looking at this footage. Do you realize what we have in the Andy Pettit scene? I said, no. He shows me the footage. We were sitting at a table where my back was to the camera, and Pettit was sitting right there facing me and the camera with a table in front of us, but it was open underneath. So when the camera pulled back, we could see under the table that during the whole discussion, Pettit is doing this. And I was gabberflasted. And then, of course, network censors are very hard to deal with, and I was just scared to death to even ask them if I could show this. So I did what my dad used to instruct me, which is, if you're worried about the answer, don't ask the question. So we put it on, and to make matters even better, we showed that part in instant slow-mo replay. So that had to be one of my two favorites, but the Jamestown routine was the other favorite. And that visit here was one of the scarier experiences of my life. Remember, I was pretty early in my official Candid Camera career at that time, and everything was out of our norm. We don't target one person, as I told, usually, and yet here we were doing that. So we had one chance. What if it didn't work? What if the mic failed? We'd be dead. Had absolutely no backup. And so in order to try to hedge our bets, we got a second camera. Now, we never do that either. Candid Camera is a single view of one camera. But for this, we thought we need a second camera with a rented telephoto lens so we could get a close-up on Baxter, the pitcher, and a regular camera up there for the wider shot and the rest of it. Well, I don't know how much you know about photography. I know very little, but I know this much. If you rehearse with a telephoto lens when there's no one in the stadium, it could work very well. And you add a few thousand cheering people, and this whole place starts going like this. And so that telephoto picture is bouncing up and down, and I'm like, oh my God, we're already dead and we haven't even shot it yet. We edited around that. The best thing that happened that night was an absolute miracle. It was a doubleheader that night, and we just watched the first game up there. But I realized during the first game that there was a live radio broadcast. And I think probably the best thought I've ever had in my career was to ask if we could get a line and plug that radio feed into our recorder and record that. Because those two guys were the stars of the whole show. Their quips about, hey, if you're online at the refreshment stand, don't hurry, we haven't done a thing yet. And then he says, boy, Baxter ought to get a pair of glasses. He can't seem to see anything, and on and on.
We haven't started the ball game yet.
I tell you, maybe it's time for Baxter to get himself a set of glasses. They ought to take him to the optometrist tomorrow to get him examined, as Hargis evidently not the culprit. He doesn't seem to believe it either for some reason.
I don't understand what's going on here. Absolutely don't understand. Looks like Baxter is ready. He's looking in, and he's still nodding no. Still nodding no, and I don't know what he's doing. He's still nodding no. As if he can't see or something. His time is gone.
And then at the end, when I threw Baxter out of the game, that was a highlight of my life. Imagine walking out halfway to the mound and, with big, you're out of here.
Okay, we're still waiting the first pitch. We're getting time called again. And now the umpire again going out to talk to the pitcher. And he pointed, he's out of there. He threw Baxter out of the ballgame. One of the most unbelievable things in the history of professional baseball we're seeing right here.
But the guy on the radio said, this is unprecedented in the history of baseball. We've never seen anything like this. A bit hyperbolic, perhaps, but I was so thrilled. And yeah, it worked out great. Everybody was so nice. The manager of the Expos at that time, Doherty, I think his name was, so nice to us. Baxter himself, this kid Hargis, who was the catcher, and the umpires. There were two umpires. that's the last thing they wanted, was to show up for work and be told there's a TV show gonna mess with your work. By the way, you've got to lend your gear to this guy from TV and he's gonna pretend to be one of you. Oh man, you know, who needs that? And we only had a little bit of time between the first game and the second game to go underneath and me to change clothes really with the home plate ump, so he hid under there. The regular ump still came out to ump on the bases, but I was behind the plate. And to put a microphone under Hargis's chest protector and another mic for me. And you know, we come out here, and I play a lot of baseball. It's one of my favorite sports, but you come out here and, you know, supposedly from what I see on TV at least, when the pitcher warms up, the home plate ump, especially in the first inning, kind of stands in and right behind the warm-ups to get a feel of how the pitch is coming in and all. Well, I didn't realize what a 93 mile per hour fastball is like when you're peering right over the catcher's neck. That was scary before we even started. You know, and then this real batter steps in, Kurt Mendenhall, and I had been told not once but maybe 20 times by the Penn League, the Umpires Association, the Expos ownership, whatever you do, don't let a real pitch be thrown. You got to stop this before, in case Baxter does throw a pitch, it can't happen. Why? I've spent the last 30 years trying to figure out why. I imagine, so if that one pitch Kurt Mendenhall had hit for a home run, and then the home run is negated, and then Mendenhall goes on to set the all-time record for home runs by a Class A player, but comes one short, I guess, of the record, and it was that ruined the whole thing, we'd be, you know, the Bill Buckners of television forever. So he almost did throw a pitch, and luckily the first base umpire was smart enough to stop it so we didn't have a legal pitch thrown, and then I sort of got control. Can you tell that I remember this well? That was a lot of fun.
My name's Peter Funt, and I do the Candid Camera show, Bob. And we just caught you on Candid Camera. Now, there's the camera up there taking your picture, and you are one of the nicest guys we've ever caught on Candid Camera, although you're shaking like a leaf.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you all to smile because you and the Expos are on Candid Camera.
Camera, folks, and we've all been taken.
Well, I guess we have.
And
We
I mean
sucked right into it, believe me. They did a great job.